I made a game for the smallest console in the world. Let's talk about it. If you aren't already aware, my name is Tess Fraser. I'm a game dev and content creator. And on this channel, we talk about everything tech news, game development, and even art. So please make sure to like this video and subscribe to appease the YouTube gods and encourage my continued transparency in my game dev journey. So this little guy is the Thumby. And yes, it does actually play games. And I absolutely became obsessed with this thing and knew I had to make a game for it. I mean, it's not like I don't have several other games and prototypes to work on, right? Sorry, I had some unfinished games in my throat. Anyways, I really wanted to make a game for this thing, and I heard online that it was relatively easy. And in Python. And while I don't specifically know MicroPython, which is apparently Python specifically made for devices that run on microcontrollers. But in knowing Python already, I do kind of have a head start. I saw the option to use Blocky, which is their drag and drop code editing, or C/C++. But one, I'm a programmer in my day job, so I'm actually just more comfortable writing code. And two, I left C++ in college. If I wanted to punish myself, I can think of more clever ways to do it. So Python it is. What's really cool about the Thumby is that the code editor is completely in the browser. I didn't have to set up a weird environment or follow a bunch of instructions. It was just there and ready for me to mess around with. And I did just that. Any of the games that are available in the Thumby arcade, you can just open up the code and fool around. It took me a while to understand some things, like how people were generating the bitmap images. Then I realized the editor allows you to draw pixel art, export it as a bitmap, and then import it into your game. How dope is that? After I messed around a bunch with the games that were available, it was time to lock in and figure out what I was going to make. Originally, I was thinking like a simple car moves forward, obstacles get in the way, and you kind of like change lanes. Think 2D Subway Surfers or like one of those old arcade games. But there were very similar games already available. Then I thought maybe a Super Hexagon clone. But then I remembered how hard it is to actually play on this thing. I didn't want to design a game that required lightning fast reflexes. Then I thought about other simple games I used to make. Tic-Tac-Toe, Simon, and those two ideas led me to, what if I made a simple memory match game? Do you remember playing those as a kid? You flip a card over, then another. If the two match, then they stay flipped over, and if it doesn't, you flip them back over, and then you keep doing it until you find all the matches. Once I had the idea, things really started to flow. And by flowing, I mean I basically took all the good stuff from this tic-tac-toe game and retrofitted it to fit my game. Of course, I had to make a number of adjustments. My game is one player, the win state is very different, etc. But a lot of the basics were actually already there for me. They were already drawing sprites, they had controller navigation, they had menus. And this game is simple enough that I didn't really need to re-architect anything or start from scratch. I just needed to understand what was already there and what needed to change. Honestly, the hardest part of this all was the sprites. I know my way around an art tool, don't get me wrong, but I haven't really messed around with pixel art before this. And honestly, I found it so intimidating. But I took it really simple. I made a square and then a rectangle. I made the closest thing I could to a circle. And I made a diamond, triangles. And the whole time I'm doing this, I'm looking at actual shapes so I can get a general idea of what I should be doing. In the end, I had a lot of fun doing it, and honestly, I think what I made looks pretty good. Here are my takeaways from making pixel art. It's okay to just try, and don't be afraid to mess up. I actually attempted several shapes that either weren't working out or just seemed a little off, including my question mark. I actually redid it after I made a bunch of the other sprites, because I learned better technique and I was able to create a more realistic shape. Iteration is why I got my sprites to where they are. And 3, the little details don't matter. Now, I'm not saying that details aren't important. I just mean you really have to consider the context in which you're making things. I was in the process of making a game for the smallest console in the world. A device smaller than my thumb. Who was gonna know if a single pixel was off? For example, the heart does look a little funky at retina resolutions, but on this little thing, the heart is Picasso.
Okay, I like it, Picasso.
So after tearing up the tic-tac-toe code and playing adult MS Paint, my game was finally complete. But I still had 2 major tasks to do. Actually test on my Thumby and get my code onto the Thumby arcade. Testing is actually really easy. Basically, all you have to do is plug your Thumby into your computer, click the save button, and voila. You did it. Your game is now in your Thumby. I am perfect, and everything I do is perfect, and as such, Everything worked the first time. There were no errors. It worked perfectly fine. The first time. Nah, I'm just kidding. But the error that I did have was something that was also appearing on the emulator. So this is the downside to not writing all your code from scratch. I accidentally reused a variable name that I didn't realize I was reusing because, I didn't actually write the original variable. And this caused my sprite to have this weird corrupted looking image. Originally, I just assumed this was an emulator error, but it turns out it was just a classic test prank. So after changing my variable name, I built it again, and this time it actually did work perfectly. So now it was time to get the game onto the arcade. So Thumby actually has a really good step-by-step instruction on how to do this. But the TLDR is you clone their branch on GitHub, put your game in the clone branch, make the necessary files, make a little recording of your game, which you can do in the editor, and then you make a pull request. Now, apparently these requests are reviewed manually, and honestly, I'm not sure how frequently they're doing it. But it's been like 2 or 3 weeks and my PR has not been approved yet.
So this is a quick editor note. Literally 3 hours after I recorded this video, they actually did publish my game to the arcade.
Therefore, my game is not in the arcade.
It is, in fact, on the arcade. Shame on past tests.
But that's okay. If you really want to play my crappy little memory match game, I'll link to the code below, and you can straight up copy it into the code editor and save it directly to your Thumby. Or you can play it in the emulator. I actually really enjoyed making this game, and I did it overnight while on vacation. I should probably say more. Anyways, thank you for watching this video, and if you enjoyed it, please drop a like and subscribe. A simple subscription helps the channel way more than you could ever imagine. And if you can't manage to do that, then maybe just share it with a friend. If you have $30 burning in your pocket and you want to buy one of these silly little toys, I'll drop the link to that as well. So let me know in the comments what you think about the Thumby. If you already have one, do you think it was worth the purchase? And if you don't have one, what's the first thing you're gonna play when you get one? Once again, my name is Tess Fraser. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next one. And spoiler alert, I think it's gonna be very cool. Let's just say it rhymes with Mimiator. OG fans will know. Maybe. Anyways, bye.